In the quiet village of Umwagu, where the sound of pesos pounding yam echoed at dusk and moonlight stories kept children awake at night, there lived a man named Okonkwo. Unlike many fathers, Okonkwo did not see his daughters as gifts to be cherished, but as golden tickets to the wealth he had always dreamt of. He was not rich, in fact, he struggled daily to make ends meet. His farm was small, his goats were few, and most days he lived from hand to mouth, but Okonkwo carried a dream in his heart, that one day, through his 3 daughters, Ada, Ngozi, and Amoka, fortune would smile upon him. Marriage, he often boasted, is not only about love. It is about wealth, position, and honor. My daughters will not marry ordinary men. No. They will bring riches into this compound. And so, when suitors began to arrive, young men with bright eyes and strong backs, farmers, hunters, even traders from neighboring villages, Okonkwo's heart remained hard. When one came with kola nuts and a jar of palm wine, Okonkwo waved him off. Is that all? Do you think my daughters are groundnuts that can be bought with ordinary gifts? Another came with goats and yam tubers. Still, Okonkwo shook his head. You insult me. My daughters are worth more than this. Time and time again, suitors left in shame or anger, their pride bruised by Okonkwo's greed. Inside the hut, the daughters whispered to each other. Ada, the eldest, said with bitterness, Papa does not want us to marry. He wants to sell us like treasures in the market. Ngozi's eyes would fill with tears. While our mates wear wrappers as wives, we still fetch water at the stream like children. And Amoka, the youngest, always hopeful, would ask softly, but what if a rich man truly comes one day? Ada would shake her head. By then, we may be old women. The years rolled by. Their friends married. Children's laughter filled other compounds. But Okonkwo's compound was silent, his daughters growing older under the heavy S. He waited. And waited. Convinced that one day, the wealthy suitor of his dreams would come with cows, gold, and bags of money, but as the elders say, a man who waits too long for ripe fruit may one day find it rotten in his hands. As the years passed, the daughters' hearts began to ache in silence. Ada, the eldest, once found love in a young man named Obina. He was not rich, but he was hardworking, the kind of man who woke before the cock crowed and returned from his farm with baskets of yam on his head. His laughter was warm, his promises sincere. One evening, under the Udola tree, Obina held Ada's hands. The moonlight danced on her face as he whispered, Ada, you are the rhythm of my heartbeat. I have told my parents, and they have agreed. Next Nko market day, I will come with kola nuts and palm wine to ask your father for your hand. Ada's eyes shone with joy. She smiled, clutching his hand. Obina, I have prayed for this day. I only hope Papa will not refuse. Obina squeezed her hand. Why would he refuse? I may not be rich, but my love is true, my hands are strong, and I will care for you. Trust me. The next market day came. Obina and his kinsman walked proudly into Okonkwo's compound, bearing the gifts of tradition, kola nuts, a jar of palm wine, and a goat. Ada's heart raced as she watched from behind the bamboo curtain, whispering prayers that her father's heart would soften. But Okonkwo sat with his legs crossed, his face stern. He barely glanced at the gifts. This is what you bring for my daughter, he said sharply, his voice cutting through the air like a knife. Obina bowed his head respectfully. These are the gifts we can afford now, Papa. I will work harder. I will make her happy. Please, accept us. But Okonkwo's eyes narrowed. Happy? Do you think happiness cooks soup? Do you think love builds a compound? No. My daughter will not suffer in hunger because of a poor farmer. Leave my compound. Ada watched from under a tree with tears burning in her eyes as Obina shamefully left their compound along with his kinsmen. In the shadows, her sisters, Ngozi and Amoka, watched silently, fear and sorrow gripping their young hearts. From that day, Ada never smiled the same way again. And Obina. He never returned. The love that could have blossomed was buried beneath Okonkwo's greed. After Ada's heartbreak, silence often lingered in Okonkwo's compound. Ada went about her chores quietly, her laughter buried, her eyes empty. Her younger sisters, Ngozi and Amoka, watched and learned the bitter truth. Papa's dream of wealth was stronger than their happiness. Ngozi, the second daughter, was gentle, with eyes that could soften even the toughest heart. One day, at the stream, she met Chike, the son of a palm wine tapper. He had strong arms from climbing palm trees and a voice that carried songs sweeter than the flute. He fetched water for her, cracked a joke, and her laughter, unlike Ada's lost one, returned to the compound. Days turned into weeks, and soon Ngozi would hum Chike's songs as she pounded yam or spread cassava on the mat to dry. One evening, as they stood by a tree close to the stream, Chike spoke. "Ngozi, I know your father is a hard man. But I promise, I will work until my palms bleed if that is what it takes to marry you." Ngozi smiled shyly. "Chike, my heart is already yours. But I fear Papa will not see the goodness in you, just as he did not with Ada's Obina." Chike shook his head, determination burning in his eyes. "I am not Obina. I will not live without a fight." True to his word, he came with his father, bringing palm wine, dried fish, and a bag of groundnuts. He bowed deeply before Okonkwo. "Great father of this household, I come with my people. I seek the hand of your daughter, Ngozi." But Okonkwo's face darkened like a sky before thunder. "Palm wine tapper's son. Do you think my daughter is a reward for climbing trees?" He kicked the bag of groundnuts aside, his voice rising. "My daughter will marry a man whose wealth can lift my name in this village, not one who sings at the stream and smells of palm wine." Ngozi gasped, her hands trembling. "Papa, please, silence." Okonkwo thundered, his cane striking the ground. "Do not shame me. Chike, leave my compound before I unleash my anger." Chike's face broke, but he stood tall. He looked at Ngozi one last time, his voice heavy with pain. "Ngozi, your father's greed is more than my strength. My love for you will not die, but I cannot fight your father's greed." He turned and left, the songs he once sang for her swallowed by sorrow. That night, Ngozi wept until her eyes swelled. Ada held her in her arms, whispering, "Now you understand, sister. Papa's dream is our curse." From then, both sisters lived in quiet grief, their dreams buried by the very man who should have protected them. Amoka, the youngest, was different. She was bold, outspoken, and refused to be caged. She fell in love with Emeka, the young schoolteacher in the village. He was not rich, but he was respectful, hardworking, and loved her dearly. One evening, Emeka came with his people to ask for Amoka's hand. Okonkwo flared up again. "Another poor man. Do you people think my daughters are for beggars?" But before Emeka could leave, Amoka stood up, her voice shaking but strong. "Enough. Papa. You destroyed Ada's life. You destroyed Ngozi's joy. I will not let you destroy mine. If you curse me, so be it. But I will follow my heart." Gasps filled the air. For the first time, Okonkwo's authority was challenged in his own compound. That night, Amoka left with Emeka. Years passed. Ngozi and Ada were not getting younger by the day. Suitors kept coming for the girls, but again and again, Okonkwo rejected them all. Some families offered goats, others came with money, but unless it was a grand display of wealth, he drove them away. Okonkwo saw wealth through them. And he would stop at nothing until he got what he wanted. He wanted lands, cows, and even mansions as bride price. Okonkwo once asked a suitor, "With your ragged clothes and empty hands, you want to marry my daughter? Tell me, how many bands of yam do you own? How many cows do you have? What land can you give me as bride price?" And they left. The girls watched as their mates got married and even had children that were running errands, but Okonkwo kept refusing more suitors until menopause started showing its face. One time when his wife couldn't keep silent anymore, she confronted him. "Okonkwo, open your eyes. These girls need homes, they need love. You are turning away good men. Your demands are too much. They are our children, not goods to be given away in exchange of money or for a highest bidder. Will you eat pride when they grow old in your house? She asked in a mix of pleading and serious tone. But Okonkwo silenced her with harsh words. Woman, keep quiet. Do you know how men are respected when their daughters marry into wealth? That is what I want. Don't disturb me. The suitors left in shame. Mothers whispered among themselves at the stream. Fathers shook their heads in the market. Okonkwo's greed will be his downfall, they said. The story of Okonkwo's greed had spread across villages. Men no longer bothered to bring palm wine or goats. Even Ngozi and Ada, once full of laughter, now carried heavy hearts. They were beautiful, yes, but beauty alone could not silence the whispers of the village women who mocked. They are still in their father's house. He keeps them as if they were goods in his barn. One night, Ifeoma sat with her younger sister Adis under the moonlight. Their voices were low. Sister, Ngozi said, shall we remain here forever? Our youth is passing. I want to love, to marry, to have children. Must we waste our way because of Papa's greed? Ifeoma sighed. I too dream of a different life. I will not die in this compound. But I'm his eldest daughter. What can I do? She sighed. Run, Ngozi whispered in her ears. Let's run away as far as possible. Let's leave, sister. Ada's eyes widened. Viv. Run. Where will we go? To anywhere our feet will carry us, Ifeoma said firmly. Better to live free in love than to remain prisoners here. Ngozi replied, and so, after many more years of loneliness, Ada and Ngozi took their chance. With the help of friends, they ran away with the men who loved them. Their mother, Ngozi, went with them. She could no longer bear the pain Okonkwo had caused her and her daughters that evening. When Okonkwo returned from a village meeting, boasting of how one day wealth would come through his daughters, he walked into an empty compound. The hearth was cold. The pots were gone. The mats were rolled away. Silence echoed where once his wife and daughters laughed. Ngozi. He called. No answer. Ada. Ngozi. Only the crickets replied. His heart sank. For the first time, fear gripped him. Then he thought his wife might have an explanation, so he screamed again, Ifeoma. Mama Ada. He got a reply, but it was a loud echo of his voice from the emptiness that filled the house. It was then Okonkwo realized the difference between utensils and daughters. Days turned into weeks, and Okonkwo's health began to fail. Without his wife and daughters, there was no one to cook his meals, no one to fetch water, no one to care for him when fever struck. The villagers pitied him, but they also shook their heads, saying he had brought this upon himself. Alone, he wasted away, until he could no longer rise from his mat. For the first time, Okonkwo saw the truth. His greed had driven away the very treasures of his life. The wealth he sought had turned to ashes in his hands. He had lost everything. A neighbor found him one day collapsed near the fire and raised alarm. The elders of the village, moved by his suffering, sent word to Amoka, since she was the only one of the daughters they knew her whereabouts. The other two had run far away that no one knew where they went to or where they now lived. At first, she refused to go. Her heart still carried the scars of his cruelty. But her husband, Chike, placed a hand on hers and reminded her that bitterness would heal nothing. Together, they returned. When Amoka stepped into the compound, she saw her father lying weak, his eyes hollow, his voice barely a whisper. For a long moment, she stood in silence. Memories flooded her heart, of her youth, of her tears, of her broken dreams. And yet, when she saw his frailty, her anger melted into sorrow. She knelt beside him, lifting his head gently, feeding him water from a calabash. For days, she cared for him, with Chike's support. Slowly, his strength returned. And in those quiet days, Okonkwo wept. He told her he was wrong, that his greed had blinded him, that he had destroyed his own happiness. He wished he could beg his daughters to forgive him, wished he could see Eda, Ngozi, and his wife, Ifeoma, again. He wished he could start over. But life does not return what is lost. It only leaves us with lessons and scars. The villagers spoke of him often after that. They said his story was a warning, that a man who values wealth over love will one day find himself empty. They looked at Amoka with admiration, for though her father had wronged her, she showed him compassion in his final days. And in her quiet forgiveness, there was a lesson greater than all. Okonkwo realized what true wealth was. Not cows, not gold, not beads. True wealth was the laughter of his children, the love of his wife, the joy of grandchildren, but for him, it was too late. His compound remained empty. His name, once loud, was spoken in pity. He lived the rest of his days with regret, sitting at the doorway of his hut, listening to the laughter of other men's grandchildren. The villagers shook their heads. Okonkwo chased wealth but lost his treasures. He looked for riches but threw away the true gold God gave him. And that was the story of Okonkwo, the greedy man who turned his daughters into tickets for wealth but ended up with nothing but regret.